Alright, hopefully a quick response video to the modern mystic who's still talking a lot of capitalist rubbish. I mean, just right-wing rubbish, Tory type rubbish, called Republican or conservative over here. Just cliche kind of crap. I mean, you might as well start talking about floating all boats. It's just gotten that silly. Sorry, Nick, but it's just silly. And it's too bad you're not willing to diagram any of these cuts in government that you're proposing. And that was the problem the Republicans had. They made the talk. They said, I am going to cut government. But then when they came to it, they couldn't find all this fat. They said there was a ton of fat, but what they'd find is $50 million worth of pork. And it wasn't real fat. It was just pork. And yes, it's good enough to get rid of $50 million worth of pork, but that's not going to solve the big problem. The big problem was $200 billion worth of deficits. And those $200 billion worth of deficits were created by tax cuts. So you're going to keep arguing that somehow the tax cuts were appropriate and it was the spending that was inappropriate. But you're not going to explain why those numbers are correct in your opinion. Why is the tax rate correct and the spending rate incorrect? And where are you going to get this waste from? What programs would you cut? Be better than the average politician, Nick, and have enough guts to exactly explain what program you're going to cut. So then I can explain to you how if you do cut that program, like food stamps or some other subsidy to the poor, that you'll gain absolutely nothing economically, because we will not in our country allow children to die in the street. So they are going to be taken care of. And the only difference is we're just going to change who's going to pay to take care of them. Poor people or rich people. And that's all that's going to change. So if you cut the programs in the federal government, you'll just unemploy people, and there'll be no jobs to replace them because we already have a huge influx of foreign labor that's taken every extra job there is. So they're not going to get a new job. They're going to be unemployed. So you're going to have to pay. You're going to have another person on the welfare rolls, essentially. Another person that you're going to have to take care of. That you're not going to allow them or their kids to die on the street. So just explain to me how anything changes as a practical matter. People are living subsistence existences now. I mean, we're just keeping them alive. I've been there. I know. And that's it. They're alive. And they're not living fancy, luxurious. I mean, there's all kinds of little stories, like the person driving to the store to use their food stamps in a shiny new Cadillac. But those are just stories, Nick. It's not the practical reality. It's not the 90% of the money being spent. And that's all you're going by. You're just sitting there doing this jargon thing, this cliche thing. Oh, there's a $1,000 hammer. Let's take that $1,000 hammer. We know what the $1,000 hammer is. Okay? It's a subsidy paying for some other thing where they lost money. So they're just doing an economics thing. And we know we're paying for the $1,000 hammer whether we like it or not. They'll just put it someplace else in the bill. Because the rich aren't going to take a pay cut. They're going to get their money. In the contract. The profit for the rich, the owners, the stockholders, is not going to get cut. All right, so it's going to be in the bill somewhere. Okay, whether it's a $1,000 hammer or not, some number is going to increase to make up for that. So let's look what the Republicans did. They cut taxes on the rich, and they increased taxes on workers, payroll taxes. And then they took the money, the payroll taxers contributed it ahead of time, and that basically was what they were using to lower the deficit, to keep the deficit from being even more outrageous. So the working class were subsidizing, essentially, a tax cut for the richest people in the country. So they could put more money in the stock market and make huge investment gains. And so they could take some of their money and actually buy the debt that was being created by them not paying their taxes. So explain how none of that happened. So that's a couple of $1 trillion worth of tax cut money. Okay, that just went to the rich, and that money, instead of appreciating, the government lost it. It lost the money, and it lost the value of the money. Because it ended up holding bonds that it has to pay back. So let's see. Yeah, so I mean, you should really be obliged to itemize this stuff. What should the government not be paying for? I mean, are you willing to say to the British that your public health service explain exactly how you would do it right and how you would do it more cheaply and more economically? Who would get low paid less? How many employees you'll fire? Where you think in the economy those employees will get jobs? All right, go right down the list of all the things you would cut. The 200 in this country, you're going to need. Well, now you're going to need $1 trillion worth of cuts. But let's just use a 200 or 300 $1 billion number for cuts. What you would cut out of the budget, and give us those numbers so that I can, so we can scrutinize them honestly and see if that makes any sense whatsoever. Because there's a lot of government spending that's bullshit. It's there, no doubt. There's employees getting paid a little too much for doing way too little, and it's usually in management. And obviously there's these contracts, and when the government contracts, all it's doing is changing the ratio of who's getting the money, because the contractors now can employ cheaper labor, and so there's more room for profit for them. And whether or not they perform the service a little bit better or not, it's only going to be a little bit better. It's not a huge difference, Nick. I don't know I've seen, state employees fixing and patching a road, and they seem pretty functional. I mean, they know how to use their jackhammers and do their work and put the goop in the hole, and, they're working. They weren't just sitting on their asses. And I've seen, private companies, utility companies, fix an electrical wire, and I've seen them send 17 trucks and, a bunch of guys sitting in lawn chairs, huge waste, to fix a $50 problem. So, I mean, I don't think you're going to get away with this argument that all these private companies know how to do everything so much better. Just regardless, why don't you detail some of this crap? You explain to me how it wasn't the tax cuts that were the problem, that it was the spending, and point to the spending that was the problem. And don't use the war, because remember, that's not a liberal concept. The liberals didn't come up with the let's invade Iraq thing. No, that was your conservative guys. The guys on your side are the ones that invented the war machine shit. All right, Clinton reduced the military budget. Jimmy Carter reduced the military budget. So explain how your conservative guys did us a big favor by spending all that money on the fucking military. All right, anyway. I mean, you really should be obliged to have a little more guts than the politicians. If you're going to throw these cliches out that there was too much government spending, then you should be able to detail some of that.